to Jajara Zono, Jinjamata, Duja Bonjamba, Sarja Lombo, Tavarajibak, Shakti Jarbaja Dungu, Zanzar, Durjin Chanja, Delo Naroda, Mabamala, Jagamboba, Pamotrapa, Javando Gomba, Kajula Manan Jeda, John Jeda, Nandana, Seratam Jeda, Lama Lapalaya Jiza. Zong la zong yong dun jam zang a la wang, din zhe dun jen zhe bai ge la zor, zhen jie zao wa la ma ji jia ge zong do jie, sen lang da 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 ge ju lan fen. Da ge den ma dan sun jie jie dun jia jian bang zhe bar sun jia lao du zor, jian ye su da su jun jie den na, tu sun jie ba me ye sen ge gong, da ge ma le de da tam jie la. Lu tang a yi tang wei cha jie wo, gang ge den jian zhe wan jiong, ga ba me ba jie, me ba jie ba me ba da, me ba wa me ba zhuo, me ba. Ta de du me dun ji me, zhu ba nye xie xie den ba, zu bu san jie ma nan jie, tang ba de la xiang zar du, zhen jie za ba la ma jie jie gu song du jie, se lang da 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 ge ju la. Da ge den ba dan sun jie jie dong jia jian bang zhe ba sun jie la du zor. Ta ta nang yi tang nga ge go ne chan sar wa ti kor de hu sim ba re ta chan sar shi ban de gudung ka re se du gudung sen ma re ta piyong ka re se wa yi na ta cher dang chan se wa la ti ne piyong ja chen bo zhang mang bo ta da sung ko yo ba re ndo chor du yo na tene logical ne drpa ta ba tabar si ba la tene chan sar wan de me nga jik cha do yore.
This morning we spoke about the prostration of the mind and the speech, and now next we will speak about the benefits of prostration. So the benefits are vast and limitless, but in brief, the physical prostration with the body, is an essential instruction or method to purify the obscurations of the body.
Then look go ne da drpa ta ser yundu perna chen da la yin yang then look to la ne na cha la so pa nywa ta da yong ge yore chirtang chan sarwan da tang then di korwa chi ban da so then ngarang zu nam ji yoga che yor yoga shi ban da so ke nang ge yang jik cha da yor wa then ta ji wa sma la sa no ta ma na then ngarang zu san je ji gom hang thap pen na san je chu ji ko gom hang thap char du then dur za jin do la long ko ta zu ko kan de ti ko ni bon go yo re ti ko ni bon ba la te chen da la lu ji go ne cho sa de jang che ban da ke then pion sam je ma cha ba yo ba re te nga go ne chan sar she chan sar se du nga go ne tu ba san je da jang cham la tu ba la ma ge wi shi ni tam je lo tu ba da la so ba la te ne te ni nga so so ra ni ke yang te ni je wa ne chra mang bo la tam bi chu je te ni dra jun je me ba tu ba te ni so so ke nga g lam ne yang te ni tam bi chu ju to ne yin la pin de da ba de na ke pin ta ko yo ba re.
Regarding the purification of the physical obscurations in this lifetime, as a result of purifying physical obscurations in this lifetime, one will experience, for example, fewer illnesses. And for example, there are various methods to do that. For example, we can do actual prostration, or we can practice circumambulation, or also yoga, the physical yoga, for example, also is a way to purify these physical obscurations in this life. And then for the future lives, as a result of purification, we attain the state of enlightenment. And once we have attained the state of the Dharmakaya, then for the sake of others, other sentient beings, one then continuously manifests the two Rupakaya, which are the Sambhogakaya and the Nirmanakayas. So if we engage in practices of accumulating merit and purifying obscurations in this life, the benefits are really inconceivable. And then regarding the prostration of the speech, that consists of, for example, offering praises to the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas, to the spiritual teachers, the gurus. And if we prostrate, we pay homage with our speech, then in all future lifetimes we will always continuously hear the sound of the Holy Dharma. And also one will be able to bring benefit through speaking the Dharma to others.
Tene da yeji go ne chan sar shi bande zo sanje gen chimba zewa nuba ge yungding jin ba deri. Tene soso ranju la tene jamning je la so ya ji wa de ta ba cha de yore. Nor na chan sa wala tine ngajar shiware. Ngajar shiwala tine tene da ngarang su nu ta ba ji na nu de zama cha ne tene de la mkong da akong da je den ra gang yang mi ba nu de ha jang zama cha de wa da ba ri. Ta ti nu zama na de na du zhen ra wo da wo ma ra wo da ka re lu ba ya na ti nu de na ko de ge yore se. Tene ta de ta ba ji ne tene ngarang zo ge ta su nam ting go je de gar chen bo ri cho sa de su nam ge pin yong de gar chen bo cha de yore is.
And then for the mental prostration of the mind, that mainly means, for example, to remember, reflect on the qualities of the Buddha, such as omniscience, compassion, and power. And then also it means to cultivate love and compassion within one's own mind. So in brief, when we practice prostration in general, as a result of prostrating, paying homage, we pacify the affliction of pride, and we become like a completely pure, clean vessel that has no holes inside, completely clean and flawless vessel. And so whatever you fill into that vessel, nectar or milk and so on, it will stay there. So it's like the container that contains the benefit of having accumulated merit.
Ta de ta sunal tobala tene an revenda wa kare yore shuna tene sunam shibande cho sak bala tene yong ko yore ba cho sa se du sa se ndu che mambo che ser dom ning bal ko yore ba ta de long su ju bala ya tene tu chu marab tene metsen mambo che la de sunam de long ju ju yo ba sunam de zon ta me ba de ta long ju ju yo ba de ta re de ni nga zo da ma yo sa de zam ning ka zelen ro che yo ma re de da nga song ga he yang la ma ge bi ni za chim bo de de len du de nam ju so ba mi ba dang tin shi cham sa la ka yo ma re cham sa tin shi ma tin tel de ne de ne lama ge wi ni to so la yang ku ya me ba dan da hyo no yo re tel de ne cho ngin pa hyo sa ga sa ro yo re ta de so tham che ren pa xiao ba ji jiang wa se la yang de cha cha wa lu nga yi song gun cha cha wan de ne pin to chen bo yo re yang lama ge wi ni za chen bo dan nan de du pin yong sam je ma cha ba yo re so so ra ni ge gu lu gu ba nga ge xie yi ge dangwa dra thone tini ku yap je de ba na de sanje dara wo chuk dar do wa de lama jel la so ba ye son dara xing ge hiraji paradise ma na son yo lama la hyap su je na tini hyap ta ko dara gong ni ba na lu ku ba nga ge xie yi ge dangwa thon dra ji tini de yong de top yong go yore si sanje gen sinsang ko yong tin so tanda ben top yong go
So what is actually the merit that we accumulate? So we have to, in order to have merit, we have to, it's called gather the accumulations. So we have to gather something, accumulate something. And that means many things coming together. And so when merit is accumulated in this way, then in many lifetimes one is able to enjoy the results from that merit. It is inexhaustible. So when it comes to the opposite of accumulating merit, like a negative accumulation, for most people this is not an issue, but sometimes it happens that some people, when they come into the presence of a very precious guru, a lama, it is possible that they maybe sometimes lose their mindfulness and become a little bit careless. And of course, often we can't really blame them for that too. But what can happen then is that they fail to pay respect or respect that guru. And in that way, they will gather a negative accumulation. And that is also why we have to perform confession to purify these negativities of body, speech, and mind. And of course, just generally speaking, simply being in the presence of such a very special guru already in itself has very incredible benefits. But so the way we show respect is physically, our physical behavior is respectful, and with our speech, we speak in an honorific way, and with our mind, we feel again inspiration, and we feel like a faith in our mind. And it is said actually in the Prajnaparamita that if one serves the guru in this way, with respect, with body, speech, and mind, then as a result of that, one will obtain the qualities of the Buddha. And what is mentioned specifically is the top knot, like the crown protuberance of a Buddha.
lama gewe hini zamaze ba ngarang tsi nam tara nangchu ke pecha doso lamje la ku ya ji go yore doso sanje ke ngu ke ta sanje ke truba ta cha de yore sanje rang so na ngab ja tu ji thama la ngane yigi zuk sun ju de che tel ku ba ji son do sanje ke ta ta tel ku ba ka che ji to ba ina de ne tel zu ke so so la ti ju ge yong tin den ju go yore wa tani 이게 강다 강인장 절단 지디 추에 때 예조 가리는 요나야 게 가리는 요나야 사마라 그 yap지 고지데 가르침보레 그 yap지 세반데 안가서 다 로보 펜스 타니 보이나 카토 람나 그 yap지 고레세 데히자 드나제 야보요레 핀토노 고요라 양 테마이나 tani 양 다 그 yap지 세반들라 양 코너 템로 사망보 요시바르와 소소 쟁지 띵 추제나 라브도티 단다리 데나네 tani 다 간다 마히바 히바시바 데네 데네 게비시니 담제 긴긴 차도 요리 tani 히 인도라 제도 수도 무수 세반다네 tani 냠스 링킹 담제 라레 디오바레스
And this does not just refer to the gurus or spiritual masters, but also we should show respect to the scriptures, like Dharma scriptures, because these are actually real manifestations of the Buddha himself. The Buddha himself had said that in the final 500 years of the degenerate age, I will appear as the scriptures. So therefore it is important to also pay respect to the scriptures. And the more respectful one is, the greater also will be one's own qualities. So it is important to be respectful, therefore, also to the Dharma scriptures or any kind of representation of it, or in any language and so forth. To show great respect is very important. And so that's in a Dharma sense. And what does respect mean, for example, between friends or companions? It also means to speak to each other in a direct and open way, and also to make one's point, because that also is of benefit. That, like, if it's something is mentioned openly, it will benefit the other person. And of course, it is possible that one might confuse or maybe misunderstand that kind of reflection of respect, or it is possible that things are said while the mind is under the influence of the 8 worldly concerns, and so on. So it's possible that people do certain things, and then it's also necessary to clarify that. And that's really the responsibility of a spiritual teacher, to clarify that which is unknown. And the responsibility of the practitioner is up to them then to take it up and practice it.
Then that chat jig sarwa ke pinun la kunga wo ke sanje la hune. Sanje ke wata tang simo la soba ke tani jutin yen yaba tanda la chat jig sarwa la tini pinun ka tse yore hudu. De ke kanza de ke zubu hyalo ni wanchin serje saige la mato ke parta da dur tanang dur ko la dur chang chini yoba. Te tsam ke kholo juwe jarpo se ta jarpo thamche ke nang ta jabu jarpo no chade yore tin te ke tan doyong thamche longs jen te ta ba che ba ina ta dong sunam zo to ko mari sumbare ta sunam lo pion la te tsam yo bare is.
Regarding the benefits of just a single prostration, Ananda asked the Buddha how much benefit is there when one prostrates to a stupa filled with the holy substances like your hair and nails and so on. If one only offers a single prostration, what's the benefit? How much benefit is there? And so the Buddha said that then when one bows down and the body is on the ground, as many dust particles as kind of sand particles there are underneath that person's body when he bows down, when he lays down, that many dust particles will lead to birth as like a powerful wheel-turning king for that many times. So a wheel-turning king is said to be the most powerful of all the kings. When one is a wheel-turning king, then one can enjoy sense pleasures endlessly, and the merit is just inexhaustible.
That you the chupan bo yin la ri de mo bonan ke de anda ni bana. Dan chupan bo yin la de la na yo bun chupa dang la na mi bun chupa so la na yo ba si di gang la yang chupa yin da de la ya san phya yo ba ji ri dang. De la na mi ba si ba de gang la de la chupa mi ba si ma no go yo ro. De ni yo bonan ga da dang bo la na yo bun chupa di to ni song go yo re. Meto tamba chingwa tamba dang senhi nam dang chukpa duncho dang marmen cho dang dukpu tamba yi jawa te dang lan chubar jes yang naza tamba nam da chumcho dang chemme perma rab nyamba dang kube chepar pabun cho kunji jawa te dang lan chubar jes tek ting yoris.
Then next is second of the 7 branches is the branch of making offerings, and that consists of 2 points. One is the surpassed offerings, and second is the unsurpassed offerings. So the first one, so surpassed means that something can be higher, and unsurpassed means that nothing can be higher. So first, the surpassed offerings, and that's in the blue prayer book, page 52, the second verse, so verse number 2 for offering. I offer to those heroic Buddhas the finest flowers, garlands, music and ointments, excellent canopies, choice lamps, and the best incense. I offer as well to those victorious ones the finest array of all excellent things, the finest robes and fragrances, and heaps of sweet-smelling powders as high as Mount Meru.
다 땡인데 메토 담바 청와 담바 심버갑수 담보 메토 시반데 다 산지 탐지게 찐라 주반 벌용 거요래 메토 시바데다 좀 집에게 나바 마란솔 이동와 시야 풀거야데 가레레스나 이동와 시 르동 지발라 깔레 카보요자 다안 풀용데 르동용 거요라 단진 레토용 거요라 데 락바르도 이동와 그때서 본다서 되는 청와 담바 시버갑수 되는 저당 다 메도게 당그진스 다 되네 텔레소바 담지 차도 요리 단데 저个人 주반 버와 차용 거 요리 청 메도게 청와 되네 담바 센도와 데타이 그런 저 나네 야 휴르슈데 레이드 요르와 되는 생이 난다 시버갑주 되네 다 자와 탐지게 되네 니시데 암초라 되네 다 버왕다 링워당 생이당 되네 나도 로모라서 와참다 게 니체 탐지 이안주반 부용 거요로
So first, I offer finest flowers. So the flower offering is an offering that represents a pleasing, a beautiful physical form that is offered. And it is offered because what we find very beautiful, it is more difficult for us to give up. So we offer it up in order to liberate our attachment, our self-grasping. So actually, the kind of first and foremost offering that we make is that which we find beautiful or something that we like. Then secondly, garlands, such as garlands of flowers, like necklaces of flowers and so on. And finest here means the best of it. So the best of flowers, the best of garlands. And then music, so that refers to anything that's pleasing to the ear, so it's offered to the ear. Before actually I forgot to mention the flowers are offered to the Buddha's eyes. So the music is offered to the Buddha's ears, and it can be like guitar and flute and cymbals, drums, and so on, various musical sounds of musical instruments.
되니다 그런 좀 버스 되니다 디오드 죽바당 동초당 송도아 다 죽바 시반데 베나 그검다 진디 라소바 탐제 되네 저심보 게데 죽바 탐제 자와가 걸 죽바당 데 죽부근이 안 주반 퍼바당 되네 동초 세른드 다 롬보치 그도 메도 그도 마즈도 라소바 응아란소 데이터부터 도 러렉만 요래다 데 탐지 다 간다르자고 그 걸어야 주반 버그에 송바레스.
Then there is ointments, and that is anything a pleasant like fragrance, like an ointment that we apply to the Buddha's bodies. For example, saffron ointment or sandalwood ointment that we offer to the bodies of the Buddhas by applying it to their bodies. Then excellent canopies. There are different kinds of canopies. For example, made of jewels or made of flowers, or like peacocks, feathers, canopies, and so on. And these are also made as an offering to the Buddha's bodies.
Teni marmen chodang shiba kapso teni ta perna rumboche serje kong ngorje kong sida te marmen chume luksa ke ta te rumboche le tripo kong to so na teni ta tar marmi kin chuban da so tamje ta ji number jirda nam jing arang su ji na chuban ba te marmi ke toni teni yan chuban ba da cha ke yore 다당에 메토데 진라 저 랍송 저단다 족 지부차니 진라 번데 요야 메토 같은 와서 걸라 주반부가 차도 요러와.
Then choice lamps, so the light offering, that is the lamps that are offered inside. There is vessels, like little bowls that contain the lamp. So the vessel, like the lamp bowl, can be made of gold or silver or any other precious substance or material. And the lamp offering is made to the Buddha's eyes. So actually, in general, the lamp offering is the offering to the Buddha's eyes. Just before I said, also the flower offering is an offering to the Buddha's eyes. And that's because the flower represents a beautiful form. But then the flower garlands are an offering to the Buddha's bodies.
Teni ta dupu tambaye sirde ta dupu se ta zhe ta zhe shimbo gerja da yons zoba teni jarwa tamje ke shangla chubamber se ngarang sola na la zhe shimbo go ba yindo teni te lu rawo je tang ne teni ngarang sola kang ya yan jinji go wa te chama jawala ya chubamber de danji chimbo je lu tong ta go yo ba da teni tana teni
and then the best incense, which also refers to any pleasant scents, and these are pleasant, sweet fragrances are offered to the Buddha's, all the Buddha's noses, and just like before, we like pleasant fragrances, and whatever fragrance we find most pleasant, that is the one that we offer. And if we offer it, then we will be able to purify a great deal of self-grasping. So this is the offering to the Buddha's noses.
Tene dea na ye ke naza tamba nan tang zhencho tang shibala subakapsu ta nabza hiba te tene cawa rikza cawa kapsu tene zhangwa yongwa tang zhangwa kapsu tene zhongpo zoya la soba tanda ke tene yongding de tene nabza tamche tene jarwa ke tarati gola chubambarwa tang tene yang ta zhiyang ko roni dimpe puyu chi tene karla kuro pu la soba ta tanda ke ma jorde che yoba tene zhichap chuba de tamche tene ta jarwa kunla tarate ta ngarang su namju ngarang su ngusu yu na ta teso ngusu yu deba na wachi chaga yorwa teso chubambar tang ten ngusu mebo wan se na yang yi ji zhuba toni yang chubambar yin ke chubambar war den jisi rang te tsama susu chubambar ta chigwa chada yoris.
Then we offer finest robes and fragrances. So the robes, the quality of offering a robe is that when it is hot, then a certain kind of robe can be cooling, and when it is cold, it can provide warmth. So the robe offering is an offering to all the Buddha's bodies. And then fragrances refers to incense, and also like powdered incense, like prepared, different mixed incense. And also, is that here? Like perfumes, pleasant smells, are all offerings to the Buddha's bodies. So here we are speaking in the context of having all these objects. So if one possesses them, then one can make an offering of them. And if one does not possess them, one can also mentally imagine them and then make that an offering. Or if somebody else is making offerings, one can also rejoice in that. And in that way, one will receive the same benefit.
Tene chem perma sejende. Tene ngaranzo zindin dang, gorgum dang, da agaro la soba ke min na min darade ranjong ke mi zihen ke mi yorwa. Deso tsama tsar jorde jene. Tene ta teya che nyung che mayin ba tene rab ku tu ta nyamba ke rab ta nyamba te ta ku thone tene chupa ta jawa thamje la chupa bagin sumares.
And then heaps of sweet-smelling powders as high as Mount Meru. So fragrant powders, for example, made of sandalwood or saffron, or that's this medicinal plant, like an herb called akaru. But basically it can be any like naturally appearing medicinal plants, any kind of herbs that are beneficial or medicinal in nature. So a mix of a powder of medicinal herbs is offered, and not just a little bit, but high as Mount Meru. So piled as high as Mount Meru. All of that is made an offering.
Tene da de yang je ya chuban burn de yang ganjong anjong ya phi ya ban do ma yin ba ku ba che par de pa ba se de de so lo ku ba pe nga rang zo sam sam kik de so lo je zo da ya bo zo de ra ji do de yin de da de le las je ba nga rang zo zo hin na gang ya ya le le de nu zo ne chu ba par go yo re se de le ku ba che par ba ba cho gun ji kuba chepar me tsik tama gang nandwa.
And then, so the order is a little different in the English. So in the English, it's in the beginning. So then it says, it is offered the finest array of all of these excellent things. So this finest array, that means that one does not just like put things there, like putting stuff somewhere when one offers them, but one offers those things in the most respectful way. For example, if you're making a very beautiful cake, you many ornaments on the cake, so you make it look very nice, like as a gift for someone. Then you're very careful about every movement. And so similarly, and actually even better than making a nice cake, one should be very careful when preparing these offerings.
Dinan chema permasi chema si de namjin da de bu ye tsek tone yang to nang di tsek de hubai na tara zindin dang kapar la so ba ma hi ye be da ya ba de la de chema se re zampan da zu ya ba la chema kapar si de min zhe ge men ro me yin chen tama tan do je yang a chung a guk They had some of my hip jirwa. The Kuba ya woji zog and hip zog on as a berna. The cake to Zodi, Dodo, Zoyamada, Tamboma, Kalokata, Do Lamar, some drawn out with Zog of them. Dan hip yabin. Then call Carizona Zoya Yorova, Zopta. Trojam Hima Zoyet.
So regarding these powders here, it says, so there is, for example, there's camphor or sandalwood. So when you take the raw plant, so first you have to prepare it. So you have to, for example, grind it into a very fine powder like tsampa or like flour when you make a cake. So you first have to grind the grains into flour. So you won't use a piece of sandalwood or a piece of camphor, but it is ground into a fine material.
The song was a thing Yava that sorry, they my bag that Hugla Zeland or Kanda Kare Puna Ben Soso Kangba Yidon Kangzang down, then Sacha down, then Hingdong Zihen Nauzer La Sobatana Ding down, then Te Sunjun, then Yidon Tamji, then Javala say that Javatam Jalan Pugo, your somebody.
So, and then aside from that, one can bring anything else to mind to make an offering. So, for example, if one has a nice house, one can think, I'm offering this, or of a certain place like land, a plot of land, or fruit, or trees, or a seed, and so on. Anything that is pleasing or beautiful is made as an offering to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas.
Then, that is some pretty young Zama, Chilogotone Zama, Nang Dolla Sobaka Zama, Zoba Meba, Genila Sobaka Zoba Meba, Nangatone Senala Sobaka, Machengba, the Nagoyori. Then the Yinda Champua mean a young, then it's also in the Lagang to Zama, Ge Jaya La Soba, the Sotamja and Chubacha Yuri. Then that Diana Yinke, that is Yinda Gungo Kayam, Pua mean a young. Then that Dara around Chuba not doing it at Hyangpua. The Pekarchimbo Chader and Della Yunti Mambo Yuri. Then Della Pia la Coram Jang Yuri, Coram de Deni Sanji Ben a cut away in a cook, Cha Yen Hut nature Gozone Yanchuba Pudi, Cha cook Cha Ye Sosoka Lapa Yung Chada Yorua, Nin Gozone Pugo Yuri, Choda. Then it shot the ma look do shot the ma captain cap nine in trouble, Katse Chata Nayagare. Teletin Suso Hine, Mikbatela Dedena, Chatman Punt Chubatama, Chatalon to say, take a Hine Tin Chada, Gomti. Then de Cholola Ma Po, Kahe Gang Magangje, the Raji Yana, Regio Mare, there Nipasa Royuza, then the Hugh Gang de Mayemba, then Chica Mato Magamba Mayemba, or there, when Tenny got take it takta with then it did Dunsar sit day in the young Kahe Partaring Bo, Kahe, then it ma took deva, then it joke joris one, the Rama Yemba, then it go Tongnam Twimba Miba, Serana Yink, per Rembe, Tarding the Yapuchin and Pugo Yores.
Then the offering substances themselves, on externally, they need to be clean, completely clean, and so there shouldn't be any dirt or dust or some trash or something like that on it. It should be completely clean on the outer level, and inside which is within your own mind, you should not be bound by stinginess, not wanting to offer. And then if you have no things to offer, for example, you can clean a temple or sweep the temple and so on. That's also like making offerings. And also if you have no other things to offer, we have a tradition of offering the sevenfold water offering. And that's actually most important and possesses many important qualities. And there's also some order to it. There is a certain way in which these offering bowls should be set up and offered. So you have the Buddha on your shrine, so you're facing the Buddha, and so you're starting to set up your first bowl to the Buddha's right side, which is your own left side. So you're starting to your own left and set up the vessels of water. And then when you pour the water, you should pour the water with mindfulness, and the stream of water that flows down into the bowl should be very small, very thin, like almost like a needle, like a very thin stream of water. Because in that way, if you're very careful, then the pouring of water also actually becomes a support, a way for you to practice shamatha or calm abiding. And then when you fill the bowls, there should be just the right measure of water too. Also, if you pour in too much, it's possible that you spill something. And when water is spilled, it is said then actually negative karma is accumulated. So one shouldn't spill the water. But the bowls should not be too full, so it should not be all the way up to the brim, but also it shouldn't be too little. Half full would not be enough. So there has to be the precise, perfect amount of water inside the bowl. And then also the way you set up the bowls, they should be set up in a neat and straight line. So not some bowls really close together and some really far apart, or kind of different distances between each other. And then the line itself shouldn't be like all crooked, but it should be a neat and straight line.
Tene chö nang tena sosol tribzang yo na tribzang te tene do hyu mangbo ba yin ba tribzang nyong nyong ji tam na tribzang hi ba de zama zo ya ge minga ji re de ya bo yo res tene gonda de la tene chuba ma hyu ba kap so tene soso ke la ba ye la ge ko yo na de ge cha la yu tene ma rem ji ya chuba hyo go yo re chuba hyuba kapso tene da donda mambo tinya yore namju soso che lodo namgi nanga da mada bala suba drinking na ne da chuba ma hyude de mada ba tin tena che nang ne de chuba yang da ba che cha go ya na lodo namgi ngune ya bo che nyamle yong kin che cha go yore de zan da de che re tene da de men ya tene chuba ma hyude ya tene che di chöde so pas chulo po kasaka po ma yone ma nu nandan tagda ma teji tinin chuba de hyu chade ya bo che zama zon kampo par de pa che ne tini de zama ma ka bob ne de na ya go yore tini de na che da di ken chuba ge chöde ma chulo lo kor yonde yang ke pin ka yong ma to sa da za tang la la ma ya ne soso la meto dan zikhen la so ba yo na to so la long na de la piu mangpo jin zom de yo pare dambo de soso ke jimba dangwa ke piu kain soso la zikhen zumo sa je yo na ya de la hla je yo re de ne yo re de la ne ba hla je yo re de ne to so la jimba de na re chuba de na cha no yo re de soso ke da me na kulong ti thone tini ni chorang ke chuba ya phu sa ba chuba de yin zang chorang ke ta tingen zin ta hine la so ba ke migram sim bu ton chuba phu zang tini chorang ke simji 산제 탐제게 눈트 텔레tin 디 추바 텔레 진압진게 차선 남중 대가서 쳐지 말이 텔레tin 데 지행 탐제 그 자르네 심지 잡차 망보라 이 핀토노고 요레스.
So then once your water bowls are all set up and filled with water, you can also add a little bit of saffron. You don't need a lot at all, just a very little bit of saffron. And the saffron is added because the saffron is a cleansing substance. It cleanses the water. And then in the evening, when you take down the offerings, you start from the other side, which would be your right-hand side, and the deities or the Buddha's left-hand side. So you're starting from your right to take down the water bowls, to empty the water bowls. And there are many things that you could reflect on when doing that. For example, if you have practiced the 4 thoughts that turn the mind and you normally think about impermanence, then you can remember impermanence at that time. So when you're making offerings, offerings really should be made in a very true, authentic way. And in order for that to happen, it is actually necessary for the practitioner to be someone who has really reflected on, internalized those 4 thoughts that turn the mind. And so in any case, when you are emptying the water bowls, again, you have to be careful that no water spills. So the water has to remain completely in the bowl, and then in the vessel you pour it into. And then you wipe the bowls when they're empty. You wipe them until they're completely dry, and then you place them in a line upside down. And then you bring out the water that you might have in your pitcher. And when you bring out the water, you should not pour it somewhere where it doesn't bring any benefit, so just anywhere on the ground. But you can, for example, pour it into flowers or tree or some plants where it brings benefit. And there are actually many benefits from doing that. First of all, for you, there is the benefit of practicing generosity. And even if you pour the water into a plant that's very small, maybe just like a finger long, the plant is certainly, within that plant, certainly the deity dwells. And therefore, by pouring water into that plant, you're also making offerings to the deity. So in this way, by just pouring out the water, you are practicing generosity and you're making offerings. And then also once you have offered that water, then you empty the water. The water has been offered when you were in a state of samadhi, a meditative state of calm abiding. And also the water having been offered to the Buddhas was therefore consecrated by the blessings of the Buddhas. So now the water is endowed with blessings, and it no longer is just ordinary water. And therefore, wherever you pour the water, when you empty the bowls, many hundreds and thousands of animals or sentient beings can benefit from that.
담보 참아 야카세는 동바베는 드라그네베는 드라지야요 말에 데네 제 야카세 데는 쳇틱바지 롱네 옹아 홍시 옹아 홍데 나조 다 남중 나조 끈다 당 탕카드서 송조 요도와 데그 찹 간달 산제지 그송도 그 신지 라비용고 요레 데인자 옹아 홍시 쳇틱바지 롱 디지게 든사데 야카세 옹아 홍 드라지는 쳇틱바 틱바지 로 담보 Tene tigal ta chom chawi mawe tena ta hi gang hi bana tena bene chuba pugo yore. Tin chuba de yinda so la che jön jorwan do ke mina chön chuba de ya pu tena che na parad simba trok chang de yore chuba je hyam ba yin na ya. Parad simba trok nyam ni ta ta de na chang de yo zang tene de sol de na de sunam chimbo ji thok yore. Ti sunam la de ne tene so rani la yang ta samputon draba tang, sereng nemi yunga tang, Teni ta tela soba ke teni jiwa saman tori toba la soba ke piyo mambo sungo yores.
Also, actually, in the morning when you first fill your water bowls, and so normally what we do is we turn them all around, and then we start pouring water in. But actually, that would mean that once you have turned the first bowl around, then you turn a second around. Then that means the first bowl is empty, and actually, the bowls should never be empty when they are turned around. So actually, strictly speaking, how it should be done is that one first opens the first bowl and one pours one drop of water in it and says Om Mahung. For example, when we make offerings when we fill statues or we consecrate tankas and so on, we write the Om Mahung. So the Om Mahung represents the blessings of all the Buddha's enlightened body, speech, and mind. So therefore Om Mahung. So then you open the second bowl, one drop of water and Om Mahung, and you do the same with every bowl. And then you pour in the water, as mentioned before, in a very subtle, very fine stream. And even if you don't have any material possessions to make offerings, if you make any offerings, and if you especially make this water offering, within this offering, actually, the practice of the 6 paramitas is complete. And due to that, you will accumulate a great deal of merit. And as a result of a great deal of merit, your wishes will be fulfilled. You will experience a long lifespan, freedom from illness. And in future lifetimes, you will be born in the higher realms and so forth. There's many benefits.
Rabri na teni chirang kasi ti yinla dunba da jikbo lo nga semla yu na teni chuba ya xiam du ti tsarchik dunba ina teni gundu zambo da sanje jancho samba tamji ke nyam da song yong yo barwa ten zang te yabo yor ten te song kan do ma hin na yang wa hong ton teni nga sem ko ton ta tingen zi gom je te so kar chen bo re teni gonda ma hyu du teni yang ning je tang da ra ku na la to ne
Ideally, if you have memorized the 7-branch prayer, then in the morning when you're setting up your water bowls, your offerings, you can recite the 7-branch prayer once. And actually, when you recite this prayer, Samantabhadra and all the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas are also reciting it. So it is very beneficial to recite it in their presence with them. And if you don't know it, if you haven't memorized this prayer, then you can just say Om Mahung, and the mental state of samadhi, of meditation, is also very important. And in the evening, when you take the water down, you also meditate, you cultivate compassion, and so on.
Ta diwo de nipa lana mi pen chuba deri denan chuba ganna lami jachi wa to teda jawa thamje la yang mu zambo chu la te pe top da ki jawa kun la changchar chuba je song ta tara lana yu pen chuba gang shu sim ba re ta lana mi pen chuba hi ban de kam de lana mi pen chuba hi ba de ka jata we ji ri sena yi zhe song yi zhe yi ge zhe ne yi ge ganda we zhe go re sena per na tene ta zo chi kyu de tene rani ge ta rani lar gon ta jam jing je la so ba de zo de dong ba to ne ngun ro ba to ne tene rang ge to ga ne ta gun de zambo tene de ta je wa cha ja ta ka che chang mang mang tene zhe di to ga ne de ta ba ge tene 양jar 다 군자상보 토가네 저 따라 장만보 군자상보 만보 저 저성아 디 리리 토가네 양 대다바 장만보 다당 공로 휴도 드직되는 드니 히바나 인게 되니 리리 토가네 리레다 장만 망로 대다바 땅네 되니 디 장데 속 유네 되니 다 라라 주바 부용 반들다 이지 주바 휴고 요바레스.
So these were the surpassed offerings, and second are the unsurpassed offerings. It says, and we are still number 2, but now page 53. By the power of my faith in the deeds of Samantabhadra, I prostrate and present vast and unequaled offerings to each of the victorious Buddhas. So the difference between the surpassed and the unsurpassed offerings is that the unsurpassed offerings are offerings that we make with our mind. So we mentally generate offerings. And so, for example, you visualize yourself as the deity, and you have already, as a preliminary, given rise to love and compassion. Then from your heart, visualize that from your heart, an inconceivable number of millions and billions of Samantabhadras emanate, and then from each of their hearts, further millions and billions Samantabhadras emanate. Just as you mentioned before, within a single atom, there's this limitless Pure Lands. So it becomes inconceivable in this way. And then all of these emanations make offerings.
다데 랑가 토가는 우즈른 초반데양 대하자지 우즈르지 초야마 마야바 군도 잠보 진랍당 님털레티네 랑가 토가는 우즈른 초 우즈르게 제테솔레 다 군도 잠보 그 주바데타바 델레테니 추바가 장 삼제 마차바 요바데 담제다 자와 담제르 푸바인스 대야제 로 이니다 태섬자오지 마인바 데니 데나송도 Zambu chula depo top dagi sonda depo top shiba de top chimbo yu cha de yore gains na depo top de ke kayinimi ke ko terri samya ke tisam de hu chimbo yore ba de la te chong ke je hyuksa ke je gokam da wa de yo ma ra de den sa de ne da de da ton de ne bugin sa da zo yi ju ko ne ju ba de ndo.
And so also you don't just radiate, like radiating some light, like sending out some light from your heart. It also, this light or the Samantabhadras that emanate from your heart as light are endowed with blessings and great power. So these blessed and powerful light rays radiate from your heart, and then from the tip of each light ray appears an emanation of Samantabhadra, and then they make inconceivable offerings to all the Buddhas. And when you make these offerings, you should be free of any doubts or have mental hesitations when it comes to making these offerings. So what's really crucial is faith. Therefore, it says here, by the power of my faith. Faith is really extremely powerful, because faith is a mind of certainty, of sincerity, of this is what it is. So that is actually this, a certainty in the mind is actually very powerful. So if you become, if you're really certain and faithful, then there is no way that doubts could enter your mind. So this is how you should think when you make the mental offering.
아, 다 되는 초반 표고한데 그바 가리 돈이 있어 되래. 다 그바데 가르리스나 구두님보데 초반 보안데 신나기님보레스 신나던 도차기님보. 도차라티네 신나제가 요래. 도차 히바처단지는 저해지 용거래 되는 도 히바데 가르스 말아서 그 열지 이동화지도 절종용 반대래. 차 세는데 디칼 샘판 트레이닝 말아서 남주 효차시 보박들라를 효차 다르차시 촐라 데 가르 프로진 차도라 다르차 차 세주되고 차본로 지 차는고 두본로 차노데 도 히바데 다 센나데 되니까네 저 센나데 그 때라 담든 진용 거요 때는 진네 진인데 다 센나를 동안라 chu jin la hono nga zo chu hiba de ya control chu ba jin si de mang in son le jin ba te ko trak che ba ri ma do ni ga pa te pu ton re de ndu ta nga na zo le sena hiba je yo de ba re tumbo ma bo ring bo sama la ma sama la sena yo re sena yo sa kan ra ma ri ma do ta ti sena de lu tong go na tan di chu ba bu je de res.
And then the next point in the commentary is the essential purpose of making offerings. So why do we need to make offerings? It is because making offerings is an antidote to stinginess and attachment. And attachment leads to stinginess. And this term attachment, in Tibetan it is döchak, so 2 syllables, dö and chak. And dö means it is a desire, a clinging desire that is clinging on to a beautiful, a pleasant object or something pleasant. And chak, the 2nd syllable, means something that has hardened or like frozen into ice, something that has become solidified. So it is basically solidified clinging. That is the kind of etymological meaning of attachment. And then stinginess, it means to also completely grasp and holding a grasping that is a holding back. So one doesn't want to let go. And in order to let it go, we make offerings to the 3 jewels, and we are generous to the sentient beings in the lower realms and so on. So there's just a difference in those terms, generosity and making offerings, but they both really are the same thing because they both basically refer to giving away, letting go, giving away. And so we all have this stinginess. We all have a problem with not being able to let go. For some, it is more, a bit more intense, a bit more like dominant, and for others, it is maybe more an average sense of not letting go. And then for some, it is very minor, but we all have it. So in order to let it go, in order to be able to let go, we make offerings and we practice generosity.
Ta ya chu ma jimba tang gon te ngarang chu chorso no kare chi gore samsan do yoro. Ya chu gon do ma jimba tang go do ngarang chu lo mogo ya de sena re ya. This so te ngarang chu nyar mo do kare chi go nga chu yu ba de sam go wa. De sam no chung chung dang na de sam no de dim ba re is. Ta gomba je pa pu ne sam no de cher dang wa ina. Tara jersey gompa chik pa desa sem ja cher tama ina junjo no sumbare jersey shwala ga nord de tama so ne gare chirsina dongha mambo yoris tambo sa go nor sa ba la sa ma ta ganga yoro ya ta chik trum ma tani nyain chin wen ni mo ko jong do wa de nor chi jong do ra ngene ra de ngar sen thong do sanje ke de lo Tom Tama book on the song yon bari the Tarang Musung around to Yore. Then Tambosa mata. Tasa tawa the song mata. Takuma like Hordo Yorewa. Then a Koranchi Rulo Koran Imba Chardoya, Koranchi Polando Roya, also by Cassandra Mambo Yore. Then Matama, Matuma Chaba, the Nork told Changadua. Then it does song down, Lapa, that last one in a Garci. Ta las no kasi dongha yore ta dongha yo da mi ma se ba ta kare chi ge yore sina pe na chorang gomo ja la song he chira ta kre de kuma je ka khar wa ta gomo ja ta ye de ya yin sa re me ya yin sa re ko yin sa re tin so su ha go yo mar su ko yo den so so ge ta ni sa gomo je nan ra nam jun je do ba nam do mo go sa cha ma la do ba nam do sa de ta de ra re de jin do he de jin mo do wa 퐁처 그인지 타마르데 퐁처스 퐁용 그 요르세 퐁가레 퐁로 메체 퐁로요 페나 자르보 탐제 찍더라 다 자르 로람 다 페널 다 잠블랜데 칼 자르보 탐제 자르시라 오마냐요 따는 거네 자네 소소라니 니사 좀보 나나 나차 그 종손죠 장가데 하죠 뇽뇽시 뭐 자르보 야는 좀다 자르보 소소 그 냐사 요라 되는 대양나 저 민康 저지는 저다 저쪽으로 나차지 저당 레크 나차라고 그나네 종송한테 뇽뇽리도 와 어느 가래 그 종송 뭐그 세송 순킨 그 뭐다 자자냥 그 세송 말이 소소는 타니 분자 분치 제 소소 그 생모 그 초가什么라고 다 대참아 저 그 진센다 진zen나 세소마 로지 코란나 만본도 안갈소라 로지 냥저제나 대 가르치스 코소게 톱탕데 숭접제 류똥마다 다텔 세나 침보요라 다 류똥마다 다 초신라고지 원나 당아 로트 소살다 렉송 상양라고지 제나 근데 쳔메텔라 오스 야보르와 때마다 다직 담든 지유셔데 다 토산의 자워도 시에케 요르마서 충충의 다 tenra susu top thang nyar deba ka nga yu pa te samyol ne ba lapse me ba ji ro ta tenra lab du me yin la chung ju ji yo ma sanje ge ja ju sum ban dal sung an de din ba rin do da ma do sen du rin do a sin ne pe yong yo res ya bo so so ge nor top thang de so da zong ro 나차 그 현나 다 레그 왕게 현로야 망보 열때 석 가토 그 말와 찐거 왕게 혀 마린 건데 혀 골레리 데 나레리 시 지라야 요래 혀 골레데 혀가 다 소마 망보 열어 와자보 어때나 되는 참아 센나게 이 소소 그 톱다운다 저널라 되네 남선 센나wen 되게 되네 이 좀실 된다나 퐁스 데리 퐁터스 데 라용 거 열어
So when we make offerings, so if imagine we are very generous and we make many offerings and we are very generous. So if that is what we need to do, then also one may wonder that if I shouldn't hold back and just give away freely everything I have, then nothing will be left behind from myself. And of course we have to think about that too, that we don't end up with anything at all. So, of course, if we think about it from this kind of smaller perspective, then that could be a valid point. But as we keep progressing, when the mind becomes a little more expanded, then it is a little bit different. And for example, Shantideva said in the Bodhicharya Vatara, first of all, so what one then understands when the mind is broader, right, is, so he says that when you accumulate wealth and possessions, all along, from beginning to end, it's a lot of suffering. So first, in the beginning, you don't have wealth. So you have the suffering of trying to get that wealth. And in order to accumulate wealth, some people have to make great effort. And often they don't even sleep day and night. So in order to make some money or make wealth. And actually that is something that the Buddha had already said thousands of years ago, but now we are still really doing it actually. So we need to accumulate wealth, which is suffering. And then even after we have accumulated some wealth, then we need to protect the wealth from thieves, or we need to protect it from becoming broken or spoiled, or maybe it becomes spoiled or rotten and so on. And actually, a lot of disagreement and disharmony between people really it's mainly about wealth. That is when people start to fight. And then when you lose your wealth, how much do you suffer then? For example, if you just lose, let's say, even just $100, and then somebody steals it from you secretly. So there's a thief who took $100 of yours, and then you don't know who it is. So it could be anyone around you. So you become all suspicious, and you're not sure, is it him or is it her? Who is it? You don't know. There's many people close to you, many people around you. And normally you don't really mistrust those, you don't mistrust those people. Normally you are not suspicious of these people, but now because you are missing $100, you are suspicious and distrustful even towards the people around you, your own friends. So that's no happiness. So stinginess leads to one's own ruin, one's own downfall, and also confusion. One's own ruin, it really is your own loss when you are greedy, because, for example, if you think about like someone who has everything, like a king. A king is wealthy and has everything he wishes for. And however, the king also is grasping at his wealth. He wants to protect his wealth. And if some of it becomes lost, then often people around him begin to disappear because he kills them, right? So they don't die a natural death, which is like a karmic thing, like a disease, for example, but they are kind of dealt with in this way because the king wants to protect his wealth. So he would do those things even to the people who are closest to him, anyone around him. And so that is, in the end, really his downfall. In the end, it leads to his own ruin. So this greed, this stinginess really has deceived him, and his, his covetousness of wanting to get more has really led him astray. And in the end, it really is, it brings himself down. And there's many stories of how, in the end, they really come to complete ruin. They're completely ruined. And just because they tried to hold on to all of their wealth, because they can't let go. If that king would have had, or anyone would have a sense of contentment and just feel that whatever I have, it's enough, and then it would be fine. Then there would be some kind of moderation to it. But if not, then it often gets out of control. And so this is just speaking really from a very high perspective, like someone who has the most, like a king. So even someone like that, even someone who has that, acts in this way. And on a smaller scale, it is really because we run after wealth and power and things to possess and so on, that we destroy all chance for happiness. And so this is mentioned in the, there's this quote mentioned in the Bodhicharya Vatara, and if you really think about it, this example, it really proves to be true.
다 센나근 레벨 라틴은 타르 야다그네스 젠로아트 남준 나조 양세 투요리데 인자 다소 주아단 레벨 다소 삼나타네 데네 양추바당 마르진바 지주테 칼침보 차데 요레 데네 티오다 추반 로견도 요르도소 로견도 요르다 추반데 데 렐라보 탑데보 주위지 차데 요레 다 소소지 메도 dom라직든 람나야 메도 년제보도 소데니 산제트 장수선 발라 주사 소수그 dom라이나리 메잉 dom라이나리 대가나 이게 드라다 드라다 로다 릭자 간다 이동와지 중화이나 참아데니 데니 군조선은 주바이 자와세다 제발 주기 사야 내한지 심진 탐제 그 돈도 주기 삼나 데니 다 소소게 장초그 셈 the compare draw dang then yin la pin to ba dang the so ke rang yi ni du ro yores.
And stinginess leads to birth as a hungry spirit, but we have heard about that a lot already. So it's important to think about the cause-effect relationship when it comes to making offerings and being generous. And then the next point here is to make offerings as one goes about one's daily activities, and that is actually a very easy and really also simple way to make offerings all the time. For example, when you come to a flower garden, you see a beautiful flower, you can think, I'm offering this to all the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas. And it doesn't matter whose garden it is. It can be your own garden or someone else's garden. And then the same you can apply to any other sense object, such as any sound or flavor or tangibles and so on that is pleasant. You can think, I'm offering this to the three jewels, the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas. I'm offering this for the benefit of sentient beings. If you think in this way, your bodhicitta will increase, and also great benefit is brought to others. And naturally, the twofold purpose of others and oneself will be accomplished.
Tati odo darati temhombo nange andang sumba. Dikpa shabu yinla shiba teri. Telan ducha hidang timuk wangi ne lutanga da digin yi ji jang. Dikpa dak ki jiba jinchiba teda tamji dak susur sha song. Then ducha shiba di da daragan shure dini hidang da timuk. Da tesu wangi da kandar dikpa gangsa zaba tamji. Dini dikpa sa yala di susu ki dikpa riri yinda ha kowar sene, dini semla drinpar sene. Dini hiaba jigo yoris.
Then we come to the third branch, which is the branch of confessing negativities. And that's number 3 in the blue prayer book on page 53. I confess every type of wrong that I have done in thought, word, or deed while influenced by desire, anger, and ignorance. So we already spoke about this term desire or attachment before. And so anything that we do with a mind or anything that we do while we are influenced by desire, anger, and ignorance is said to be again negativity, negative karma. And when we confess that, we first have to recognize all the wrong, the mistakes that we have made, all the wrong things that we have done. We bring them all to mind and then confess them.
Dati o seconda ten ducha hidang seba de dacheta shiri hubaina. Tanga so hidang sena kongchoa sena nda chang yorba. Nanda kantar tsewa semjik chado yor. Yin tsewa semjik. Deni te chandu tsewa hibade yin nu jiya ta nu ta yin nu siya tra ke samnaji chado yoris. Hidang hibanda.
So we spoke about attachment, and so now regarding anger. So anger is basically like a mind of aversion, a hostile state of mind. It is a mind that wishes harm upon others. It is an aggressive, hostile state of mind.
Hidang hibade the same good the mege lunga yisam nange tara yiji mege wachado yor dela narsem segur narsem hibade sewa tsesem jik chado yor is sewa siak semje ta dela narsem go yor is naba mandaw go tambo de garage narsem de ganaru chigo yor sina ya chorang ngalan nuba jesong sayak sanochik de jegre teni da teres.
Tambotira.
Tambo de churang kenga la nuba jesong sam. Deka sam no jay. Niba de la teni chuga nuba nga la de da jihin do sam ne. Da ma kansa jiga nuba ji yin ba kap da ba jigla. Teni sumba de chuga la nuba ndra jisa res. Chuga nga la sanyi nuba ndra jisa re. Yama na lo jima ndra nuba jisa samsa na waji yorwa. De sumba de re. Teni yeba de churang nga ke dropo la tanda jesong. Churang nga ke punchi la tanda jesong. Ta so da ta ni wa gansa ji la tanda jesong sen teni churang ke semnang la di matala sesem ke samno jeng go yorwa. Teni de jik ba yang yin ke tanda ji yin ba de da ji. Teni jiparan churwa si ta maung ba la tanda jisare samya. Teni yin ba je garer sena chu nga draw de la pin ta song si nga ko la ga me chu de la ya bo je song san da kon ro je teni de la chong ke pin ta yin ba rin do de sam sa na de chu maung ba la ko la ya bo ji sa re da e sam sa ta de da ko to ne kun na sem ba go se ne ta da na ba ji cha de yo re.
So, of the actions of body, speech, and mind, hatred is a mental, non-virtuous deed, and so its essence is it is a mind of aversion and resentment that feels hostile toward others and wishes harm upon them, like a hateful intention toward others. And it is said that there are 9 different kind of versions of such a hostile mind against others. The first one is where you think he harmed me or you harmed me. You did something that hurt me. The second one, so the past, talking about the past. The second one is you are harming me now. So you're hurting me right now and being resentful about it. And the third one is you're going to hurt me in the future. Maybe tomorrow you're going to hurt me, or next year I think you're going to hurt me. And you're already resentful. And then number 4 is you have hurt someone that is close to me. For example, you hurt my friend, or you hurt my family member, or anyone else that is near to me. So again, you feel hostile toward that person, hateful because he harmed someone that you love. Number 5 is then you have harmed someone that I love. Number 5 is you are now harming someone I love. Number 6 is being suspicious of in the future, I know you're going to harm my loved ones. Number 7 is you are helping my enemy. I don't like this person, but you are helping him, so therefore I hate you. So you have helped my enemy. Number 8 is you are helping my enemy. And number 9 is you're probably going to help my enemy in the future.
Ta hidang si de te ta we jire ta so so ko semnang la hidang ji en de ha go go ra te hidang ri dong do. Ma su hidang ngo ma hin ti ke hidang si na nyumo ngo ma hi wa ka nga je yo ngo hin ne ni pa pan ta ma ji je ka nga ni ba de de ro. Do cha hidang. Demo si ta demo hi ba de ta ka re si de me shi ba hi ban de re. Nga zo wang bo ke demo le jung de zan tong yo ma tong ma ta ri ma do. Chung tomok le chung tong mataba deyang tomok korang ke dreb de yubatari. Tomok de nyumong jet yidong zge da jet yidong hibanda ya ma changwa mi pe dong ba chama tin na chang de dong ba zhang ga dak da de jet yidong je ma re de chang yu mong chama tin na chang de yu da gare ri mi ba hibanda ri ma hiba le tin ne gare yong ge yu sin de ni logda logbar ni ba le jim de yo ma re si da gare si yo ma re junsi pad pada heya yo religion re misala ta cheng thar ti ne de dolang cheng ne pa te tin nge mi hi simra nge ha ko ma sang simra ma to kayan ro sam re te to mo gu jor te te chom ta sanje da chang chu sam ba ke jin lab dang yong tin tham je ju de te chom sa ne o de yin sa da ra ka wa yin gri pa che yin je ma re o sa ha da o da la so ba ke te chom 근데 뉴모 바 탐지 그 띵세에 돼 요러와 담 데목스 데이터 버리스
And so anger is something that we first must recognize. And mostly we fail to recognize our own afflictive emotions. And that's really our biggest difficulty. We don't recognize our own afflictive emotions. And this lack of recognition is the third affliction, which is ignorance. And ignorance basically means being unknowing. Ignorance also means that you are not able to see the faults in all the other afflictions. You don't seem that it leads to suffering and so on. So actually, when you don't recognize the fault in other afflictions, it is also a sign of being obscured by ignorance. So we speak about 84,000 different afflictive emotions, and it is said that all the afflictions are included within that number, although it's not exactly necessarily that number. But basically, ignorance means to not know about all of that, about their faults. And unknowingness leads to wrong views. For example, denying the truth of karma. And those people maybe are able to give some very good reasons for why there is no karma. But then when you actually get into a debate with them, then in the end, they really are kind of there's like a dead end that they are led into. There's no further to go for them, and then they just don't know because they don't really know. And that is the fault of ignorance. And then also ignorance manifests as doubts. For example, when someone expresses the qualities of the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas, one may doubt and think that that's probably not true, or how can that be, and so on. But basically, ignorance is basically the foundation of all the afflictive emotions.
다 대다위 도차히다 도모성 그 왕게스 디 인왕도 현은 가서 라왕 미바엔 디 인왕도 휴드 데네 다 로지고는 메게솜 소주바 데네 마진벨림바 도벨로파리암바 솜 로지고는 메게솜 간다강 샤바엔 세바이나 도소 다 야바 그거 요로 디 나고는 메게이야 준 차마 되니 직접 안찰스 다도서 메게 예요리 되니 이지고니 낙섬 노섬 록다스 단 이지고네 납섬 시바다 나르섬 니카르와 납섬 시바데 이게 전조와 토고사지 ngal 유나 삼야게 yinle yoba de yinle yo chogre ngala ya je yona samba te mare yinle yoba de ngala yona samba nda no sam hiba de ta magawa derwa logda gang kyu simba imba.
And so then we become controlled by these afflictive emotions of attachment, anger, and ignorance. because we have no control over them. So they take us over, and then we engage in action influenced by these afflictions, actions of body, speech, and mind. So first, there are 3 non-virtuous actions of the body. That is killing, stealing, and sexual misconduct. And all of these need to be confessed. Then we have 4 non-virtuous actions of the speech, which is telling lies, idle talk, harsh speech, and slander, divisive speech. And then there is 3 non-virtuous actions of the mind, which is covetousness, harmful thoughts, and wrong views. And so covetousness means that a desire to get what other people have, but not in the sense of they can have it, but I also want to have it, but more in the sense of I don't want them to have it, only I want to have it. So that is covetousness. And then the harmful thought is a resentful mind of dislike, and then there's wrong views.
Teni da luji gona mege somde da mambo cheke gongo yore nga gona mege ye yorwa tinang ge da kar cheki che marang zo zabza chi go za de chama shibanda lama da lom pa la chama chi ba robo nin chambo yo na de pa la chama shiba de tukhen ya na tor yong go yore churang robo de ge masamba je samba ngin ba je churang nan dog yang na robo de malapa je dukja je lakhun do se ne teni robo pinju bala khator yong ko yorwa de ya bu mi ba nga so ka ha ko yorwa ngos teni yi ji nang ge ta tarati lokpar ta wa mege chyo lo ta che so dewa jin sing kha che wa la yang che le la hyu de sing kha tham chen nang ge ngong bo ba me ke sing kha de ri de lokta yula lokta le ke tel chewa la ke chi ro yore te jum se na te ne jiti yanda ka tawa ne le jum de yopar ta tawa la lokta me chi jotang teni ta thartho ka tawa ne teni tongba ni tongdam chaja chim ne lo la teni lokpar tawa me chewa dan deni karchem bore dan de ngarang chuba tang jirtang ke jo chama la teni ha chu zo ko Jong Yewa Chigla, Yang Zab na Zab Taba Jega Chada Yuri, Zab Goya de Garne Chimbo Chada Yuri. Tang Aranzo, Sen Dala Karsi Sangma Jena, Devachin Hingar Jia Grevachi Jago Yurwa. Devachin Hingar Jia Reva Jadu Churang, Devachin Hingar Jia Nga Drang Chakchin Rayuri, Hindak Sunam Sama San Chakchin Rayurta, Devachin Jia Churang Kato Chik Yuris, Karere. 저는 lokta chi songare te ke ka de yo na ten tarong dewa jin je to ko mar di jum chen te ne lokta pang je gar chimbor dewa jin chi songare na te ngarang so sang je ya la ya le lar ro wa tan da song ko yo ro ba
So regarding the 3 non-virtuous actions of the body, so we are familiar with those, and of the 4 non-virtuous actions of speech, the most important one that we have to be very careful about and really pay special attention to is slander or divisive speech, which can happen in any kind of relationship, for example, between gurus and their disciples or between friends. Basically, slander, divisive speech means to stir up problems between people and to make them become unharmonious when they are first harmonious, when they're first getting along. Or it also means, for example, when one has a positive state of mind to stir up problems and cause their mind to be negative. Or, for example, it means that you speak negatively about a certain friend to somebody else just so that there is a split between them, so just so that they don't get along. So we all know that this is not good. And then regarding the mind, the worst is wrong view, the worst negative action, but actually of all the 10 non-virtuous actions, wrong view is the heaviest one. And that is because, for example, if we want to take birth in the Buddha Amitabha's pure land of Devachan, actually this pure land is the easiest of all the pure lands to be born in. So if we want to be born there, we cannot be born there if we cultivate wrong views. So in terms of correct view, there is the correct worldly view, and that is karma. So one must not develop a wrong view in terms of karma. And then the ultimate view is the view of emptiness, the nature of the mind of Mahamudra. So one also must not develop a wrong view with regard to that. And it doesn't matter whether one is a Dharma practitioner or a normal person. These are points that are important for anyone, and it is also something that we can be careful about, because we have to really think about it. Even, let's say, if we cannot attain enlightenment in this lifetime, then really our hope should be to be born in Devachan. That's really our hope. And even if you have all the conditions to be born in Devachan, for example, you have recited mantras and you have accumulated various other forms of merit, still you will not be born in Devachan if there is wrong view. Wrong view is the one thing that will stop you from taking birth in Devachan. So therefore, in order to be born in Devachan, it is very important to abandon wrong view, because generally it is very easy to be born in Devachan, and once you are born there, you will attain enlightenment very easily.
Alright, that the order the dog some genu sub chichons. That no sub chichon carriage shiba that I will son down. Perna, ta hedang tabletine Karpa tong the sabai Jim ta Jimba la suba sutum song la sub gya tamji control check in jom degree sungre. Tande yang jom siba de gewa de tini mili win jom the sti tonda mare. Tanda yung ya yo mare te yina yang ti geza can drive the mimba la teni kantar chazo paruk la te hedang ke drive te ko hyokche sina ti hedang sa yib le de sosolo mi yung go yorwa. Hedang le can drive the maze but te si to tin soso ge sa yib geza drive the sosolo minta mi barwa. Ta te so jumsin la te ne pen hedang tabe na no sab chimbo te tabe chi chade yoris.
And then the next section in the commentary is so what determines that what determines the strength, the gravity of the three poisons. So in terms of anger, for example, it is said that a moment of anger destroys the virtues such as generosity, discipline, and so on, the virtue accumulated in thousands of aeons. And destroy here, what it actually means is, destroy does actually not mean that the already accumulated virtues are completely obliterated, but it means that something comes in between their ripening and like in between the accumulation of merit and their ripening. So it is just kind of postponed. So you have accumulated those virtues, but they can't ripen for now because anger or hatred has arisen. And because hatred is such a powerful affliction, its power will cause it to ripen first, and it will take a while. So until that comes to an end, the virtue that's already there is blocked from maturing. So it's just there, but it can't mature. And so that's the reason why it is said that hatred is so destructive.
And the parents on the dying, sorry. Perna, na gom rao jam na Sept lula, panama de becapso. Murder check Lord the channel Henang Sawajet, Henang Rawaj, Lang Waina. Did the Henang the one get his lula, Pamdoya the Carson Chami Jerson. There in the dig that his lula, but de devate, the Carson Chami George. That dig Henang Namra the Ma Maya, but the seat, Churan dead such a terran dead, the Taran Churan, the lula pavia, the sum of the Mutu Tokoyo Marwa. That thing I'm proud of the ma here and do the young man to the ma the lullaby de Montuna netaba that data which be you know.
To give one example to exemplify this. So for example, when you're meditating and imagine you're meditating and the mind is very relaxed, and like all of a sudden someone comes up to you from behind and really scares you. So in that moment, you feel really startled and afraid. You're completely, you're unsettled and you're all taken out from your relaxation. There's no more relaxation. So you have become completely agitated. And then for as long as you are in this agitated state, you're not in a relaxed and peaceful state. But you're still in the same place where you're meditating. It's just that your mind is not really relaxed. And then gradually you calm down and you become relaxed again. So it's just like that. There was something in between that interrupted your relaxation, but then you come back to it and continue in relaxation.
That nga so namju hedang me tawe se ju da pe de ha chang chung bo ya bu song do. Ngarang zu me la lakwa thuwa da nyam den tin me tseng do wa. De tawe hedang ka du ji na. Ye na hedang koran lo de la. Hedang lan du rang ke ha ko yin ga ha ko a de des le la bo yo re. De le tin du jin chen den da ma sama ke je hedang de ma chong go sang ya kan du ba yong ke cha nyang re da. Han lang ka za sun da je tab jo yin se na ji su hedang de ju ma tong ki yo mar da rawang mi ba rang da ro sama rawang mi ba sam sa cha ro yo ro ma do ke. De re. Dan du cha se wan da. Du cha hi ban de da hedang na yin ke je lamsang te ta sein ro kin da wo ji mari de ko la ka le che mo ji yo re ka le ka ra yo sina do cha jin de do cha la thara se na ta ra pa ro na so su te sa ha ko yo re de do cha tha re de ne ha ko yo ma nga so de ha ma o de tin nga so ni bo tin ta mi re da o nga do cha jin do da ma da ha ma na de ni bo tin chu sing men do ro se na je kim sa ro re de da ma bo je ge tin ta bo ma tin su sing mo se na la sa yo mo ne men tin su sing go wa tin go wa tin na da hira tin to yo ma do cha ni bo te tel tin da ni bo tin ma de ka re cha gre ne ko tam bo nga rang zu cho je zhang lo ne ya cho cha wo zhang lo ne ya ba na ge re cho cha wo je zhang lo ne ya de ko tam bo lang ba zo ma cha wo ri ja de nyong ro de ne zhang mo zo de ne ga le xia cha da je de ne ga yang ga ya Then Koran ben king ne pe then do le cha cha ro ya yo ha de da de da de ga che ko do cha den teng sa ru song wa yin na yang de zu ge de ni ko dong ha de ma ro cha dang yong ge yo ba o de le dan do cha
And we always say that anger is just like fire. It is burning like fire. Just like when you reach with your hand into fire, it burns you. Anger is just like that. But also anger is an affliction that we easily recognize it in ourselves, and actually also others recognize it when we get angry at them. So it's an affliction that's a little bit easier to recognize. And probably most people, maybe everyone really wants to have less anger, wants to be less angry. unless one is like extremely like evil. But actually, we all want to be without anger. But then we can't help ourselves, and we get angry anyways, because we just sometimes get controlled by it. But it's something that we can recognize. And then, so that's anger. And then attachment is affliction that is more sneaky than anger, because we don't usually recognize it right away. It's more difficult to recognize. But actually, so this actually creates quite a big problem for most of us, because it comes in many nuances. If it's very coarse desire, then we recognize that. But mostly when it's more subtle, we don't recognize it. And because we don't recognize it, we also fail to apply an antidote, because we don't even know that it's really there. So we won't apply an antidote. But actually, we should apply an antidote. Because, for example, with desire, it's like you take a glass of hot water or some kind of vessel in hot water, and you put it into the freezer. So slowly, it steams off, and slowly the heat goes away, and it gets more and more cold, and finally it begins to freeze, and then the ice block becomes extremely solid, like a rock. So it solidifies from this fluidity into this solidified piece of rock. So the more we give in to desire or attachment, the more our unhappiness, our suffering will increase.
Tene ta temo kibanda nare ta temo kibanda na dog dongbo tawe jiris. Dog dongbo je yo na ko ke loma je je de dore. Ko ke del meto reve je mi de dore. Da de tawe yindu tene temo kibanda na tene gantar je tarpa ke so cho nong kin rawo je cha de yoris. 탐진 침박.
So then next there's ignorance. And ignorance is like a poisonous tree. When the tree is poisonous, then all the tree parts are also poisonous. For example, the leaves are poisonous, and the flowers and the fruit, everything is poisonous. And ignorance is the one affliction that kind of steals the life force of liberation. It prevents us from attaining the state of omniscience and liberation.
다 간다르는 도차 히반데 세 ngarmo tabijiris kala sadi ko ngarmo dawaji yorite jine nasa zono rakoke then ngarmo do tele cha sa ne tama jine nasa zono hedang hibade jurmo se jurmo dan daworis ko sa ne ko juryo ba ha ko rita ko ma deva miglana mi pa kha khalana mi pa zono ra miglana mi pa te jurmo sa se jigzor da te karero lemon mare lemon face hedang lang de lemon face tenika temonen droa mi pe se dan ra wa ji droa ke mi je se je sa de na pa che ate ko che pa dan ta nyom ro yo ro wa teni yina ta ko ke nang ni ru go hyo ma ta na teni na za zon ro wa ta te ta we cha de yo res dog sum hi ban.
And it is said attachment or desire is like sweet food. So while we eat it, it tastes sweet and very pleasant. But then if we keep eating it, then we develop diabetes. Anger is like eating sour food. When we eat it, we feel a little uncomfortable. Like when you that's this lemon face that we get, right? The eyes and the mouth, I guess, make some strange movements if you eat something sour. So we already know it's a little unpleasant. And ignorance is like eating plain food, tasteless food. that basically we are indifferent toward. But then, even though we don't really recognize it, once it is in our belly, if we cannot digest it, it will create diseases. So that is the explanation on the 3 poisons.
다 디오도 독섬 제철 그런 바도 숨고 요래. 다 제브른 바 가르르스나 담보 때모 제케 요레스. 간스나 팀데 연라 주니 요래 단 코와는 코르지게 대 탕카 더 리모티가 바 요래 마음발라 저런스 도나데나. 데는 그 따뜨목데 지브 롱와나 인지리 가양 미히바. 데 뜨목데 데레 손시. 데니 뜨목라 때는 도차제 용거 요래. 도차라 때는 희당제 용거 요레스. 지브른 바 데다버지.
And the next section deals with the way in which the 3 poisons arise, how they arise. So first, ignorance arises. And there are like tankas and images of the 12 links of interdependent relation that depict this cycle of the 12 links that cause us to wander in samsara. So maybe in the future you can look at one of those images. So anyways, it begins with ignorance, and ignorance is like being blind, like a blind person. And from ignorance develops attachment, and from attachment develops anger or hatred.
다데 인도 뜨모데 노차 해당이 제지게 담보 속행다고 차데 요레세 바르트 테니라 잡틴 진도 로파 진도 그게다 잡틴나 이 차데 요레세 테니 타마다 코라니라 제 조보 코라니 그 조보 야 휴데다 때목 차데 요라 코 가인서 콘 라미 휴스다 나연 라미 바네데 요로와 다 데다베지 독섬 히바던다레 데인도 다 때모 히바데더니 혁체엔도 노차는 저런 거요라 오 노차가 오 혁체엔도 해당은 저런 거요라 해당은 오 혁체는 이게 때목을 판 저런 거 대중들은 코아시 바던라 콘도 와데 디토네 하고 또 요래
So first, so from attachment, from ignorance arise attachment and then hatred, anger. So ignorance is like the life supporting tree, it's like the foundation for the other afflictions in the beginning. So it causes them to arise. Then in the middle, it supports them. Ignorance supports the other afflictions. And in the end, ignorance becomes the best friend of all afflictions, because ignorance never leaves them. They're always inseparable. And then when ignorance becomes very strong, it turns into attachment. And when attachment becomes strong, it turns into hatred. And when hatred becomes strong, it again turns into ignorance. And so this is how we actually keep wandering in samsara. We stop here for today and continue on Thursday.
Thank you very much.
And we dedicate in the yellow prayer book on page 11, the first verse. By this merit may I attain omniscience, having defeated the enemies, my wrongdoings. May I liberate all beings who are tossed in the ocean of samsara by the waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death. And then the blue prayer book, page 64, 21. May every being ailing with disease be freed at once from every malady. May all the sickness that afflicts the living be instantly and permanently healed.